All right, good morning. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, National CPS trial lawyer, and these are my office hours. And today on my office hours, we have Sarah. Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, doing good. Sarah, what county and state are you at?
I'm in Shasta County, California.
Shasta,
Yeah.
Shasta County, up near the Oregon border, right?
That's right. A couple hours south, but up in Redding.
Well, I've actually done cases in Shasta County, believe it or not. One time I flew into Sacramento and rented a car and drove all the way
Um,
up to Shasta.
okay,
And
yeah.
and then isn't there a closer airport like near Reading or something?
There is one. It's really small airport though. They don't have a lot of
Right.
flights coming in and out.
Anyway, so how can I help you?
I just have some questions about my case. I have my two biological children and my two stepchildren, my husband's children, were all taken by CFS. And I mean, we didn't really know anything was going on until they just took them from school and we had no idea about it. So it was just kind of out of the blue. But my mom, she filed a 388 to ask the judge for an expedited ICPC, and the courts have her coming into our disposition hearing, which is the 26th, so it's coming up pretty soon. But the social worker told her that my ex-husband and my husband's ex-wife both disagree with the kids being placed with her, and we're wondering, like, will that make a difference in the ICPC if some of the parents disagree? And like, what should she say to the judge to get the best chance of having them placed with her?
Well, let me make sure I have the facts straight.
Mm-hmm.
What state is the ICPC in?
Nevada.
Okay, and it's an expedited ICPC.
That's what she's asking for, yeah.
Okay. And that would be the only type of ICPC she should ask for because
Mm-hmm.
a regular ICPC can take months, literally
Yeah.
months. An expedited ICPC only takes 30 days. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Oh,
so
I
if
was
you're
just gonna say, sorry.
if you're a grandmother living in Nevada
Mm-hmm.
and you want the kids placed with you, most courts require you to go through ICPC. But I want to tell you something very interesting. And there are a couple of cases on this, and they go both ways. Um, by definition, when you read ICPC, and I think it's Article 8,
Mm-hmm.
um, ICPC doesn't apply to grandparents.
Okay.
Okay, but of course, very few courts want to acknowledge that and say that it does apply. So we have to comply with it because that's what
Right.
most courts want. Now, she, in my opinion, she has the right to have the children placed with her if they're not placed with the mother or the father.
Right.
Okay. And the reason is because the law prefers that kids be placed with relatives, not with
Mm-hmm.
strangers in a foster home. Now, there is an argument that can be made by the other parent, by one of the parents to say, or both, to say, well, I don't want my kids placed in Nevada because it's going to be hard for me to reunify with them. For example, it's going to be hard for me to visit them and see them. Not so much talk to them anymore because
Right.
long distance calls are the same as regular calls, local calls.
Mhm.
But the arguments against that are number one, well, you can go visit them in Nevada and the social workers will have to pay for it. Nevada to, Shasta County to Nevada is not a long flight, maybe what, an hour?
I don't know about flying, but it's about a 3-hour drive. And
Yeah.
my mom also, she said that she's willing to drive up here for visits too. So,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. Okay.
yeah.
I mean, well, that argument then gets lesser and lesser because I've argued, well, you can fly into to Las Vegas in less than an hour,
Yep.
and the social workers would have to pay for it because they have to facilitate visitation. But if the caretaker in Nevada was willing to come up to Shasta,
Mhm.
once or twice a week for the visits to take place, then that's an argument against the father not
Yeah.
wanting the kids to go to Nevada. Additionally, with technology today, phone calls are cheap, they're inexpensive, probably free. Zoom, like, well, we're
Yeah.
not doing Zoom, we're doing StreamYard, but these type of
Same. Yep.
video conference calls are free. You can do that, and that gives the parent still stuck in Shasta the opportunity to have frequent and ongoing contact with the child,
Right.
which is what the law provides. Sometimes, you could be in Shasta and have more visitation with your child in Nevada because everybody's so cognizant of the fact that these visitations have to take place. But you could be in Shasta, and the kids could be in Shasta, and the social worker and foster parent could be, running roughshod over your visits. You're not really getting any visits.
Mhm.
So, and then Nevada's close. It's not Florida. It's not New York. It's not Maine. So they're kind of in the geographic location.
Right.
But there's a strong mandate that the kids be placed with relatives. Now, what I have done in some cases over the years is when that's the only argument and the father has laid out his argument, well, I don't want the kids going out of state because it's going to interfere with my visitation. I've had the grandparents come to live in the county.
Yep. And she actually said that she was willing to do that, but since she didn't have a residence yet, the court told when we went to court for the initial hearing, they told her that they couldn't be placed with her because she didn't have a residence in Shasta County yet.
That's not the law, but whatever.
Yeah.
She could fly. I mean, economics is always a consideration, but right now she could get on a plane, go to Shasta County or drive to Shasta County and just rent an apartment, just rent an
Mhm.
Airbnb.
Yep. And she said she would, and they said, well, that's going to take up to 90 days, so we're not going to.
No, no, no. It won't take
Yeah.
up to 90 days. Why would you do that?
That's what she asked, and she just said that's what, or the social workers told her that they wouldn't be able to do it fast enough to get the kids, so they're
Look,
in
look, if that grandmother came to Shasta County today and got an apartment
Mhm.
and notified the social worker that, hey, I've changed my residence. I now am a resident of Shasta County, because travel and changing residence is a constitutional right. I don't know if you know
Right.
this, but it's part of the constitutional rights that we have. It's called the right to travel. And
Mhm.
you, as an American citizen, can go anywhere in the country and live. Okay, there's no restrictions.
Right.
If she could change her residence right now and say, "Look, I'm living in Shasta County. I intend to live here for the foregoing future, and I want my house or my apartment, um, inspected for placement." And
Right.
they'd have to do it.
Okay. Okay. Um, I don't know. I have a couple other questions.
Go ahead.
So what was that?
I said, "Go ahead."
Oh, sorry. My husband's lawyer said that the disposition is going to be contested. She said it might be because my mom filed the 388, but there are things in the report that we have proved to be wrong and that didn't happen. And so we have evidence that's going to be presented and stuff. The lawyer thinks that we can get that it's a good possibility we can get the kids placed with us and do family maintenance. Um, what do you think the best way to go about getting family maintenance would be like? Um,
I can
to
tell you.
have them,
Hold on, and don't take notes. Just listen, because
oh,
Grace, the producer of this show, is going to send you a video of
okay,
this.
okay,
Okay. So I just want you to listen
yep,
and see if you conceptually understand it.
okay,
At the disposition hearing, and you know, I do a lot of consults on this, and I did one right before I came on this show with you today.
I see.
In California, and I think it's like this in most states, but the social worker has to prove, not you, the social worker has to
Mhm.
prove by clear and convincing evidence, which is a very high standard, two things. Two things, not one, two. If they don't prove both of these, you get the kids back, period.
Okay. Okay.
Number one, they have to prove that you are a substantial danger to the child.
Mhm.
Okay? Think about that for a second. They don't have to prove danger, they have to prove substantial danger.
Right.
You have to be a bad MF to be a substantial danger
Yes.
to a child. And I don't know what the allegations are against you, but generally, people that are substantial dangers to children are sexual predators, domestic violence folks that haven't undergone treatment, and you know, people that are under the influence of drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't fall into one of those categories, in my mind, it's going to be hard for the social worker to prove that you're a substantial
Right.
danger.
Yeah.
Now, here's one of the things that it's an old defense trick that I used to use, other attorneys used it. Let's say the case came in as a drug case. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying your case was a drug case, but let's say it's a drugs case.
Yep.
We would continue out the disposition hearing so that the client could get in drug rehab and have test results like for 10 weeks, 15 weeks, so that when you do go to court for the disposition hearing, the social worker has to prove on that day, not the day they filed, on that day that you're a substantial danger. Now, if the case was a drug case and you've been in drug counseling for 3 months and been testing clean for 12 weeks, it's going to be pretty damn hard for the social worker to prove that you're a substantial danger
Right.
because you've resolved the situation.
Yeah.
Remember, they have to prove on that day, not the day the case started.
The
Okay?
day of the hearing.
The day of the hearing.
Okay. Okay.
The second thing that they have to prove is that you are a no less restrictive alternatives. Well, you being in the program and continuing to test for the judge and the social worker shows that there's less restrictive alternatives. The other thing that I do is I ask clients, hey, is there a family friend or a family relative that can move in with you with the kids
Okay.
to watch you? So that's a less restrictive alternative. I just won a case like this a few weeks ago in LA County. The grandmother said that she could move in with the mother and the kids if the kids were returned. Now, the social worker never even explored that alternative, but I presented it to the judge, and the judge was like, "Yeah, that's a that's a less restrictive alternative.
Right.
Grandma will call the social worker and the police if there's any problems. I'll be notified, and we don't have to keep the kids in foster care.
Okay.
Less restrictive alternative."
Yep. Okay. That makes sense.
So, what you should be talking to your attorney about is what defenses are you going to show that I'm not a substantial danger? And
Right.
what less restrictive alternatives? Now, I just gave you one. All
Yeah.
right. The guy I was talking to right before this, I talking to you,
Mhm.
he has a stepson and a neighbor who are willing to move in full time so that he can get the kids back.
Okay.
Less restrictive alternative.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
here's another less restrictive alternative that the social worker is supposed to consider, but never does. And that is something called family preservation services. It may be called something a little different in your county,
Right.
but every county, every state, especially California, receives millions and millions of dollars from the federal government to provide services to families so they don't have to be broken up. And in LA County and a lot of counties, they call it family preservation services. Exactly what it means. Let's not send the kids to foster care. Let's put them back home and provide services so
Yep.
that the kids can stay there. Now, here's something, a typical family preservation service. 3 or 4 providers come to your home 4 to 5 times a week and spend an hour or 2 with you and the kids and provide you parenting services, provide
Okay.
you counseling services, provide you in-home service like teach you how to manage your household, how to keep it clean, et cetera, et cetera. Some people need
Yeah.
these services.
Yeah.
So, why would you keep kids in a foster home when it was based upon a dirty home when you can put in people to help the mom learn how to keep the house clean?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are
Okay.
less restrictive
Yeah,
alternatives.
that makes a lot of sense.
So, and one of the things you want to talk to your attorney about is subpoenaing the social worker who is most knowledgeable about family preservation services in your county.
Okay.
I once did a case um, in Sonoma County, okay, and I said I wanted the social worker most knowledgeable about family preservation services in that county. And you would think that the prosecuting attorney would speak to this person because it's their
Yeah.
client about the case. Well, they brought in this lady and she had never heard of this case. And I started just talking to her regularly. I said, there are a lot of services that you could provide to keep kids together so they can be returned home. She goes, oh, yeah, lots of services. And I said, well, let me tell you a little bit about this case, blah, 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 blah. Now, what services could you give them to keep them together? She
Hmm.
went on maybe about 15 or 20 minutes before she realized she was helping me.
Oh wow, that's funny.
And the judge never said this, but he was looking at her like, I've never heard of any of this stuff.
Right.
And I've been doing these cases for 3 years, 2 or 3 years, and nobody's ever mentioned family preservation services.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
mean, it was like, you mean to tell me there are services we can give these people to keep them at home with the parents? Yeah,
Right.
yeah, they get millions of dollars for this, Judge.
Wow.
And I don't know why they don't. Some people speculate that these counties take the money for family preservation services and use it elsewhere. You know, there was one crazy allegation in LA County years, decades ago, that they were taking money and they were buying their attorneys new office furniture to the tune
Oh
of
geez.
$10 million. But
Right.
it was all in the newspaper, I think. But who knows what they do with this money, right? But
Yep.
on your case, you should make them spend the money and give you family preservation
Hmm.
services
Okay.
in order to keep the
Yes,
children home. Now,
definitely.
I'm looking at you. We've never met. I've never reviewed your file, but I'm getting the sense that you're not a danger to any kids. And if you were, we could provide you other services. Like, can grandma, who wants the kids in Nevada, why doesn't she just move in with you and take the care of the kids and allow you to live there?
Yep.
Oh, we never thought of that.
Yeah.
That's
Well, actually, she did ask my lawyer about that, and my lawyer told her that it probably wouldn't be good enough for the social workers. So,
okay. It doesn't matter for the social workers.
uh-huh,
Do
it's
you
the judge.
understand? It's
Yeah.
the judge, right?
Yep. I do get that.
Now, how can you say grandma living at home with the parents and the kids is not a good idea for grandma to be
Right.
watching and reporting to the judge and the social worker if anything goes wrong? How could
Yep.
you say that?
Yeah. Because then the family's together and the
Yeah,
kids aren't with strangers
right.
and
So
yeah.
talk to your client, talk to your attorney
Hmm.
about bringing witnesses who will say, yeah, I'll move in with the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, I live here in town and I'll take care of the kids.
Yeah.
Grandma
Okay.
could come in and say, well, I got an apartment. I'll take care of the kids. Or I'll move in with the parents and take care of the kids with them.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
It's also like one of those things. How could the judge refuse that?
Right.
You know, social workers have their own agenda,
Hmm.
and sometimes it has to deal with biases, prejudices, and money. Okay, but if you present a coherent, simple, make sense plan to the judge, most judges are going to say, you know, that sounds like a really good idea.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
let's at least try it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it couldn't hurt bringing it up.
Right. So talk to your attorney about those two things. You
Okay.
know, I attorneys sometimes get upset when you try to tell them how to do their job.
Right.
Okay. I see it all the time. All right. And there's a way you can present things to attorneys.
Yep.
And you could email your attorney because it's in writing and there's a record of
Hmm.
it. Oh, I just found this online. At the disposition hearing, the social worker has to prove two things by clear and convincing evidence. I'm a substantial danger and there's no less restrictive alternatives. Let's focus on that. Like, what
Yep.
witnesses could we bring? Oh,
Yep.
here's a less restrictive alternative: family preservation services. I saw that online someplace. Bring in a
Yep.
social worker to testify about that. Oh, I have relatives and friends that'll come live with me or take care of the kids. Let's present evidence on that or witnesses on that. And you kind of nicely suggest it to
Right.
the attorney. And I'm going to assume your attorney knows the law, but you let your attorney know you found the law too. You now understand what's
Yep.
needed. And
Okay.
there's nothing like a trial where you present evidence and you cross-examine witnesses.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Many, many, many years ago, a couple decades ago, I wanted kids to be placed with a grandmother in New York, and I was in LA County,
Okay.
and we had to have a trial. And the social worker got on the stand and testified. And it was kind of a hotly contested trial. And I, at one point, I asked the social worker, "Tell me the real." I was kind of being Perry Mason like. Tell me the real reason why you don't want to place the kids
Right.
with the grandmother. And she kind of looked at me, looked at the judge, and looked at her attorney, like, "Do you really want to know why? Because I'm going to tell you why." It was like one of those, what was that movie with uh, the naval attorneys? I forgot. Anyway, it was like, you don't. Do you want the truth? You can't handle it.
Oh, yeah. You can't handle the truth.
So this is what she said. She said, number one, first of all, the grandmother lives with her boyfriend, and I'm like, well, and
Okay.
she's not married. And I said, why is that a problem? She said, because it's a sin. That was her number one reason.
Oh.
And I said, well, is there any other reason? I want to know. And she goes, she didn't want to say it, but she couldn't help herself. She said, the grandmother's Jamaican, and everybody knows Jamaicans are all drug dealers.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But the judge kind of goes like this and then looks at her like, are you serious? And the judge realized that she was serious. He stood up and he walked off the bench.
Wow.
Needless to say, the kids were placed with the grandmother.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Okay.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, you really don't know what social workers are doing and thinking
Yep.
unless you put them on the stand and
Hmm.
examine them.
Okay.
And
Yep.
your attorney, I'm sure your attorney is qualified and can cross examine the social worker to show that you're not a substantial danger by clear and convincing evidence, and
Yep.
there are less restrictive alternatives. This is really an easy part of the case to do. It's just that not many attorneys do it. And I'm not
Okay.
sure why.
Yep. Well, it's actually my husband's attorney brought up a contested hearing and stuff, and she's the one who told us about it. So
Good.
she's, yes, she's willing to do the work and stuff. So,
Perfect.
um, sorry, I'm just looking. I wrote down my questions so I wouldn't forget them. My husband, so my stepkids, this is actually their second time being taken by CPS. The first time, their mom, my husband's ex-wife, made the allegations that he was trying to kill her and the kids, and then she actually admitted in court that that didn't happen. It still took him like 18 months to get the kids back. It was during COVID, so everything was, visits were all over Zoom. Everything was uh, slow walking and stuff. Um, she told my husband back then, and they were actually still married at the time, that she would sleep with the social worker in order to get the kids back. And later on, she did make a comment to him that she did. We actually have the same social worker as they did last time, and we're wondering, um, like, would that be grounds to be able to get a different social worker, or like, how would that work?
Are you
'Cause
kidding me? Of course it would be.
yeah, that's
By
what we
the way,
thought, but like,
by the
I
way,
was just, uh-huh.
I've heard of that happening.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've heard of it happening. People are people, and whatever crazy stuff people
Yeah, of
do in the regular
course.
world, they do it in this world too as well.
Mhm.
Yes, that would be grounds.
Okay,
Not only that, but it's a huge civil rights lawsuit
yep,
against,
that's what my
uh
next question was gonna be about.
against Shasta County and the social worker.
Mhm.
Because believe it or not, she's not the first one that he did this with,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And, it's nothing like social media or a newspaper ad. Hey, did you have to perform sexual favors with social worker so and so in order to get your kids back?
Yep.
You'll be surprised how many people would respond to that. Yeah, I did.
Mhm.
Because, we live in a different time and period of civilization now. And
Yep.
it's the woke movement and, the Me Too movement, you know, and you find out people have been doing some crazy stuff.
Yep.
I mean, just look at what the allegations they have against the music mogul P Diddy.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
Right? It sounds crazy, but what if half of it is true?
Right.
Right? So you know, unfortunately or fortunately, people are people, right? And
Yep.
they do things that sometimes aren't right.
Yep.
But if that's true, I would consider you or your husband filing a complaint with the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights
Okay.
Division, and they and the FBI might investigate it and then
Okay.
file the same complaint, same complaint with the Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. They
O
actually control all the money and make all the rules for
okay.
CPS nationwide,
Okay.
And the other thing you might want to do is you might want to make a complaint to the head of the state Department of Social Services in Sacramento.
Uh-huh.
They're the head of all social workers in the state of California. I'm not sure making a complaint with your county, Shasta County, will help anything. Typically, counties try to hide what's really going
Yeah.
on because they're scared of being sued. But they might sweep it under the rug. But that's such a serious allegation that you just told
Yeah.
me. I mean, the ramifications are mind blowing. So that's something I would talk to my attorney about
Okay,
making these
okay. Because I
complaints.
mean, we did ask her about possibly trying to get a different social worker, and she said, but if they didn't allow a different social worker, then the social worker that we have now would push back even harder, and then it would be harder for us to reunify.
That might be true, but I mean, if you make all these complaints, um, just making a complaint against a social worker with that ramification would necessitate, under the law, there's, I think, in the Welfare and Institutions Code section, like 16,500,
Mhm.
somewhere around there, you can make a motion to disqualify a social worker and get a new social worker. That would be one of the things, that just making
Right.
that allegation against the social worker, and if there was any proof, um, that would be, something serious. I'm going to tell you something. I can't mention any names, but many years ago, a woman came to my office and said that her kids had been taken away, and that the reason was because she had gone to family law court and got a $1,500 a month child support order against the husband or against the father.
Mhm.
Well, the father apparently started up a physical relationship, with a social worker who then allegedly schooled him, and they've started a false CPS case to take the kids away from her and give them to the father.
Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
So she tells me this story, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I believe that. And even if I do, how am I going to prove that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I politely told her, hey, I really can't help you. You'd have to have proof. So you know what she did? She went out and got proof. Here was the proof that she came back with.
Okay.
She somehow followed them to a motel, videotaped them because this is when I don't know if she had a phone or if she did it with a video camera,
Yep.
but she videotaped them going into and coming out of a motel room. We went to court.
Mm-hmm.
She was taken off the case. The woman got her kids back. We then sued the social workers in the county,
Right. That's
and
crazy. Yeah.
they ended up settling the case. Right. This social worker ended up getting fired, but was fighting to get her job back because she was a civil servant in
Yep.
California. She didn't get her job back, but to my in my opinion, it was proven that she was having a relationship with the father
Mm-hmm.
to the detriment of my client, just because the father didn't want to pay her child support.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Now, when I first met this lady, I kind of thought she was crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, well, if you're
And
telling
she
the
brought
truth,
you the proof.
yeah. And I told her, I said, you got to bring me some evidence, and and I never dreamed that she'd be able to ever get evidence, because like, how can you ever get evidence of a person
Right.
having an improper sexual affair with someone? I just,
Yep.
you don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. So then if we did file the complaint and stuff for the civil, um, would we do that now while the dependency court is going on, or would we wait till after that's over with, or
That's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
okay. Okay.
It all becomes a strategy consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't reviewed your file. I don't know enough
Right.
to tell
Of
you.
course.
Some attorneys will tell you, yes, do it now. Some attorneys will tell you, wait until you get the kids back.
Okay.
But you
Okay.
don't
So
know.
yeah, it just depends on everything else. Okay, so to make a complaint with like you said, federal and stuff for civil, would I be able to look up that online or something?
Oh
How
yeah,
to
you would be. Um,
Okay,
I I'm not at my office, but I don't have the link. But just Google Department of Health and Human Services.
okay,
Google U.S. Department of Justice,
okay,
Civil Rights Division in your area.
okay,
Okay, DHHS is in D.C., and I'm almost positive that at least DHHS has a complaint form that's online that you can fill out. All
okay,
right.
okay.
And the Department of Justice, it depends on where your case is, what office. Well, you're in Shasta, so I don't know where the nearest office is in that part of California.
Right.
But you would make a complaint. It might be Sacramento, but you'd call up that office and say, "How do I make a civil rights complaint?"
Okay.
And they'll tell you, and they'll say,
Awesome.
they'll tell you, number one, you got to come get the form. Number two, we'll email you the form, or by the way, the form's online, or we'll mail you the
Right.
form.
However, yeah.
But this is their business. They take
Yeah.
complaints from the public
Okay.
about when civil rights have been violated.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions I have right now, so I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on, Sarah. And if anything comes up, give me a call, 888-888-6582, and good luck on your contested disposition.
Yes.
By the way, I
Thank
always
you.
offer my services to talk to attorneys about their case. Your
Okay.
attorney may not, a lot of attorneys don't want to talk to me. They think
Okay,
I'm
well,
some kind of,
actually, she did mention, we met with her a couple days ago, and she did mention that she was gonna try and reach out to you, so
yeah, tell her to reach out to me. I'd be happy
okay,
to tell her my thoughts about the case and give her some suggestions.
awesome.
All
All right,
right.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mhm.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right. Before we go and finish up these office hours, I got a long question from a viewer on Facebook. Raquel Ramirez. She says, how can we make the social worker accountable for keeping my sister's newborn twins with, quote, presumed father, unquote, instead of allowing twins to be placed with mother who was living in a sober living facility where they encourage mothers and children to live together and show they're capable of being a mother, ignoring the opportunity to keep my sister with her twins. Unfortunately, she completed the program without ever given the chance to be a mother because of her past case. Now the presumed father has been... Okay, it cuts off there. Has been, and then it says... He also took the twins out of state, and when caseworker was notified, she failed to let the FBI know that she has contact with the wanted fugitive. Is that not the same as hiding and withholding information from the FBI? Or some kind of law breaking on her part? We're in California, by the way. This was during the visit with the twins. Okay, Raquel, I'm kind of lost in your questioning, but let me say this. One of the things that had to have happened is that your sister and her attorney would have had to have a contest or a trial to prove that the child should be placed with her in the drug facility and not with the presumed father. Now, whether that happened or not, or didn't happen, or they didn't present any evidence, I don't know. And that's one of the things that you're making one of the big mistakes I see. You're assuming that the social worker and the judge will always do what the law says or you believe the law to be, and that's not true. The law is just what should happen in a case. Proving that's a whole nother thing. Like I recently told someone, I can tell you the what. The what is the law. But how to persuade the judge or the social worker to follow the law as you see it, that's a whole different thing. That has a lot to do with civil procedure, the rules of evidence, witness testimony, documentary evidence, subpoenaed into court. I mean, so just don't think that because you know what the law is, that the judge is going to follow it, because sometimes there's different interpretations. Sometimes more importantly, there's different evidence. There's different evidence of what the law is. Now, if you're telling me that the father is a fugitive because he took the children and the social worker didn't tell the FBI about it, yeah, that's an issue. If you can prove that, that's definitely an issue, and that's something that I would take up with an attorney, perhaps the mother's attorney, or perhaps another attorney, in contacting the FBI. Okay, Raquel, I hope that answers your question. If you need more clarification, do me a favor and call my office, 888-888-6582, and tell them that you were on my office hours today and that you wanted to clarify some question and some of the answers that I gave to your questions. All right, I'm looking at our comments and our questions. There are no other questions being posted by anyone today, so I will end the office hours today. Everyone have a good weekend. We'll see you next time on my office hours on how to fight CPS and win. Bye-bye.